Hello and welcome to the show, Mr. Ego and the Feral Monk. Thank you for joining us today. We are wrapping up our first season, and today we're going to be discussing meditation on this is our 10th episode. So it seems like we've been kind of heading to this, this point, this crux, these crossroads for quite some time now, building up to this point. To start it out, just kind of like to look, trusted old Google and see what they've got to say about meditation. Right off the bat, it likes to categorize meditation into 9 different techniques. And basically, you've got your mindfulness meditation, your spiritual meditation, and you've also got your focused meditation and movement meditation. Got mantra, transcendental, progressive relaxation, and then also loving kindness meditation. So basically, I think that they try to break it up into these little subgroups and techniques to try to help people find what may be the most effective method for them. So I understand where they're going with it. I know that personally, when I started meditating, I did not look for a certain type of meditation. I found that guided meditations were easier for me starting out. But yeah, we can delve into that a little bit more. So yeah, thanks for joining me today, Mr. Monk. I know that you've got an extensive background on meditation, and I'd love for you to share some of your experience with that.
Yeah, I was actually just thinking about the same thing as you were talking about your first time, as you started to get into meditation. I'd like to actually hear you expound on that a little bit more. Um, I had, whenever I first came across meditation, I hadn't actually heard anything about it, so I was completely ignorant. I was no idea what, what meditation was. I didn't have any of the negative connotations toward it or positive connotations. It was just something that I had never come across. So whenever I started, it was seemed like an endless number of possibilities of ways to meditate, and everyone telling everyone else, no, this is the way to meditate. And
Yeah, I equated it with prayer, in my mind. Like so I saw it as pretty foreign to me because, I had, my adult life, switched my religious beliefs quite somewhat. So prayer wasn't something that I was doing. And so meditation was like, oh, that's just a way to pray, like I don't need it. I don't know why would I do that.
I remember that I kind of got into the whole situation. It's like the typically funny way to get into something like that. But so I was dating a girl, and she thought her yoga teacher was really hot. So so I naturally reacted with jealousy to that, and I was like, I gotta find out what's up with this yoga thing. And so it kind of started off a little bit like that, which is kind of funny how um, sometimes you stumble onto to something for the wrong reasons, but it ends up being it turns out to be something really good. That at some point I wasn't with that girl anymore, but the more I learned about meditation and yoga and these types of things, the more I I came to do it for the right reasons.
Hmm.
Guess you could say it like that.
Yeah. Yeah. It doesn't really matter how you get there as long as you get there, right?
I find it really comical. I think
Yeah.
it's a fun part of the story for my backstory. It's kind of a fun part of it is like I stumbled into something that eventually um, uh, helped me to find meaning and tools and ways to deal with the reality of emotions and thinking and agenda and the experience of time and perception and all of these things that we've been talking about, and gave me a very stacked toolbox to work with.
Yeah. My concept of, or my idea of it at first, um, was very much like it seemed like it was just another escape, right? It was like prayer. It was this false blanket, security blanket, that people wrapped themselves up in and told themselves that everything's okay when shit was clearly not okay. And so but then I changed, obviously. But that was my initial reaction to the idea of meditation.
Yeah,
And and then eventually over the years, um, trying different things to try to solve my problems, usually externally. And then finally, I started thinking about internally. Um, and all the things that I've tried, medications, drugs, none of them have provided what meditation has provided to me, or for me. It's difficult to put into words, but it's helped me a lot with my stress and anxiety. And it doesn't do it by eliminating your problems, or and for everyone it's different, of course. But it definitely lowers the volume, I feel like. Um it makes life a lot more manageable, if you just reduce it to the simplicity of breathing. I mean, it's really as simple as that. Um, I know Chad, or Mr. Monk, excuse me, been telling me a lot of this stuff for a long time, and even my wife um, definitely shared some of what's worked for her. And I'm just a stubborn man. It took me a long time to finally sit down and be quiet. and and so that's kind of my story about it. I'm still working on it, and by far have come to any place of like enlightenment or perfection, and I'm not looking for that. So yeah, that's my dig on it.
yeah. And like I said, I got started in it for the wrong reasons, and actually even before that, like I said, I was almost a little bit standoffish to it because just it seemed like it was egotistical, and it seemed very new agey. uh I saw a lot of like books with like meditate your way to being rich and stuff like that, and I was just like yeah,
Yeah.
I kind of had like a similar feeling about it as I did about uh psychologists and things like that. It just seemed like a lot of uh, hocus pocus and almost uh, fantasy type of therapy or something like that. And so I was a little bit, skeptical. I was a lot skeptical of it. And then, of course, I was dating the girl, um, and she was into it, and I was into her. So I went down that direction, and you know, started to see that through meeting people who had more experience and more time um, searching in that field than I had at that time. I started to realize that there was actually a lot of um, really earnest and genuine people and traditions and practices that are very effective and that aren't, I didn't want to find like a visualization. I didn't want to make up something in my head to make myself feel better. you know I wanted to find a way to come um, to some type of experience of truth, whatever that means, from inside out. Like, and didn't want to I didn't want to I realized over that beginning period of yoga and stuff that, like, oh, I deceive myself a lot, and I don't want to anymore. I don't want to um I don't want to react out of, you know, some unknown motivations in my unconscious. I don't like this feeling of being steered around, or um, not understanding why I feel or think certain things, or, just it was like it coincided with sort of like the moment of becoming an adult too. So they kind of, you know, um, coincided the discovery of meditation and these different types of practices, and um, stepping into having responsibility and having to work and having, you know, uh, rent and things to take care of. And so I think that maybe helped it a little bit, because they were kind of really similar then at that point. And so I think maybe that relationship of like coming into adulthood and discovering meditation at the same time, I think it was almost like a kind of a perfect timing situation, because my interest was already there. Like I'd gotten past the superficial interest in the beginning, and had gotten to some of the I'd gotten through some different techniques and seen a little bit, I had been through the market and seen a little bit of the different techniques and methods, and had tried them out a little bit here and there, and had started to find things that were helping me to get to a deep self honesty and clarity. And I was like, okay, these techniques are there. I can see, um, I can see actual fruits from them, practicing them. So I would like to pursue them more. And so it became, getting more and more into that. Of course, along the way, you stumble and stuff. You start meditating, and which, I guess we should probably clear that up too a little bit. Like, whenever I'm saying meditation, the thing that I got to by the end of it all is it's really about presence. It's really about being 100% here with whatever is in front of you, whatever is inside you, whatever feelings or thoughts, and to be fully present to those things without reacting to them, being wrapped up in them, but also not ignoring them or being indifferent to them, but just being absolutely present um, to those things. And one technique that I came across whenever quite early in meditating was sort of this idea of witnessing. And so it took me quite a while to like realize how subtly the ego um, can jump in to something and sort of hijack it. So in the beginning, in my innocence of beginning the technique, it was actually quite easy um, to witness, to be like, okay, I get that, okay, I'm just gonna watch. and there would be watching with no commentary. And so it was very good in the beginning like that. And then after some time, the ego had slipped into the witnessing and had become the witnesser, and then started to comment on everything that I was witnessing. And it happened in a way that I wasn't really aware of it. I was then still a meditator meditating, um, which was coming from that whole collective of conditioning, the self-image that is the product of conditioning. And so it had slipped. It took me a while to realize that it had slipped um, into the role of the witness, and so it began commenting on everything in my meditations. But then outside of meditation, it would start to comment on everything going on in my life and everything that I could possibly be aware of, whether it was even like physical things in my environment, buildings, sounds, trying to be aware of like the bird behind me plus the dog in front of me and the building, and like trying to do this thing of like be aware of everything, and it started taking on like. And so the ego, that's the spiritual ego that had repulsed me in the beginning of like, from these sort of new agey spiritual teachers, that shit was starting to happen in my head, not as like an ego sense of that I was proud of it. I was extremely annoyed by it, but the I that was annoyed by it was still part of all that conditioning. I hadn't yet realized that like my mind is full of voices, from news and grandparents and parents and brothers and sisters and whatever else, and it's sort of like multiple personalities with which to engage the world with, depending on the situation. It's a little bit the strategic part of that conditioning AI inside of us, and a little bit of coping and strategy of how to relate to people. And so I hadn't realized all of that depth of game going on. And so I started to become really annoyed with this witness, because it's turning into a judge witness. And now it's like now it's commenting, but it's commenting on the quality of my actions. It's starting to get into sort of the condemning and it seemed like, to my conditioned self in that whole process at that moment, it seemed like I couldn't turn it off, you know, and it became really frustrating, and I became completely disillusioned with meditation and yoga. I stopped doing absolutely everything. Um, I just felt like, like all it did was give me this judge voice in my head, and at that point,
A little maddening.
it was a little maddening and a little upsetting, and as often is the case, like for me, the pendulum just kind of swung in the other direction. And I mean, it swung far into sort of like a very deep atheistic materialism, indulgent, um, type of life philosophy for a little while, um, that resulted in like, some physical sicknesses and allergies and things. It resulted in mental tensions and anger, and it it happened in such like a gradual way that like I didn't even notice it. And because I had become disillusioned with meditation and wasn't really sitting and trying to observe and be present anymore, like I slipped into a story. But the story that I slipped into was a sort of a bitter, grumpy, um, dissatisfied, that witness judge had sort of become a little bit part of my character. I mean, people who know me probably wouldn't have noticed it that much, but I noticed it a lot from inside of myself. And so whenever I got back around to meditation again, um, it was almost like a remembering thing, like, oh, okay, that's why, like you were saying, it's helping slow things down, and realizing the value of it again, and then that sort of drawing you back into practice, and but I was still having trouble reaching any really deep insights into myself. I was able to calm down. I was able to manage my stress. I was able to which are extremely positive, and ask anyone, who was on my bad side during that time, like it's much better afterwards. If
Mm-hmm.
once I started getting back into it again, um, and then at some point, uh, when we were traveling in India, my wife was doing her dissertation for the university in a project in India. And so we were living in India, and we went to a Vipassana retreat on the advice of a friend of ours. So it would be a Buddhist retreat of 10 days, 10 hours of meditation a day. You're not allowed to speak or write or read or do any other forms of spiritual practices or singing or any of these kinds of things. You meditate, and that's what you meditate, you eat, you sleep, you shit, you shower. Uh, and all of your
Intense.
basic needs are taken care of by the people who are working at the facility. And so the first 3 days of Vipassana, you're just only watching your breath 10 hours a day. And you're like trying to watch like the sensation around the holes of the nose as like the air is going in and out, because it's a small area, and you're trying to sharpen and strengthen your ability to concentrate and to focus on something. It would fall into that category of focus meditation that was brought up earlier. Whereas the presence thing might be something more like the mindfulness meditation as a title. And so in those 3 days at the beginning, like I could, if I was counting breaths, I probably couldn't have made it to 10 breaths before I was just like, floated away into something,
Mm-hmm.
you know, like just all over the place, just mind going all over the place, just forgetting that, sometimes even that you're in the hall until like, the muscles between your shoulder blades start burning and stuff because you've been sitting up for 2 hours, and your legs are asleep or whatever. So like, moving on into the days after the 3 days, you start getting into the further parts of the technique of basically developing awareness and equanimity. But I was behind. I was not able to get this like silly super small exercise, and because my mind was um, escalating the problem by dwelling on it and talking about it, and this witness voice going, and all this
Loop.
like attacks and loops, and it was quite frustrating that it wasn't, and but over time it started to get better. It started to get better, 2 minutes, 3 minutes without wandering away. Oh, 10 minutes without wandering away. Like, holy shit, that was a really good 10 minutes,
Yeah.
and it just got stronger and stronger and sharper and sharper. And then, after a couple of days, I had a morning where it was just through the whole 2 hour block. I was just aware of my breath, and I didn't go anywhere else. I stayed with my breath the whole 2 hours. Um, and it felt fantastic. It felt fantastic to be that present. And then the rest of it was like super easy to catch up at that point. Like, and it made me realize that, one of those big keys for developing uh, a meditation practice is having that like ability to focus your attention concentrated, really sharp and really clean. And I found that was, for me, was like, that was a really powerful technique of observing a super small space of your body to make yourself have to concentrate hard. And it reminded me of whether it was mudras or other things. Like, okay, it made sense to me suddenly that a lot of these different techniques of meditation are actually concentrations. They're actually trying to develop concentration first and get that sharp enough so that like meditation is actually possible. Because um, in the end, the what we're really talking about is being able to be 100% present to all the depths and levels of your being, your body, your mind, um, whatever it is, and that requires for it to be really meditation. It's unbroken. It's just unbroken presence, and so concentration exercises helped a whole lot, and the breath was a great universal tool as a focus of that concentration, and so that totally changed my meditations after that retreat. By the 10th day, I didn't want to leave. I was like, how long can you stay? Like, and I don't want to talk to nobody. I don't want to read anything. I want to go sit up in the meditation cell in the pagoda and get my shit straight. Like, by the end of the 10 days, I was like, holy fuck, actually, there is so much work to be done. Like, I don't really want to go back into, like, like when you first finally realize, like, what a debased little, confused, freaky, weird mess you are.
Yeah.
And then there's a way to clear it out without having to, like, pick apart every little thing and, like, revert every little mistake, and because that's impossible. It's absolutely impossible. But there's, like, a way, um, which is through awareness and equanimity, to withstand all of those patterns and momentums and things, and allow them to run themselves out, and have the possibility of coming to a point where you can act authentically because of that presence that you've become, and you can respond in an appropriate and powerful and good way to whatever that challenge is coming up. But I wanted to recount some of those experiences, because a lot of times nobody told me about, like, the struggles and, like, the slip ups, and and how mind was going to be attacking. No one gave me the pointings of at least not until later in my meditation practice, the pointings of, like, the conditioning and the problem that it is, and how the seeker or the thinker or the meditator or whatever is a thought, and not the actual real you. Like, all of those things weren't there in the beginning, and so, I mean, in the beginning it was just like being in a candy store. So you try transcendental meditation or mantra meditation, even though they made them two different things. They're pretty much the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's where you're taking some type of syllable. Usually in the Hindu sense, it's going to be one of the gods. It's going to be something like Om Namah Shivaya, or it's going to be just repeating Ram 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 Ram, just repeating and repeating and repeating, Ram is the name of God, as much as you can. And what happens in a mantra meditation is, at some point, it's like one of those songs you hear on the radio that you can't get out of your head afterwards. It becomes a permanent recitation in your mind. And so there's not a lot of space for you to have stupid thoughts, right? Like, that's the purpose of it. It's like it's entrained the mind into this thing. And so I tried out, like, a lot of these things, but they weren't giving me a clear insight into myself. It wasn't transforming me fundamentally. It was like a band-aid, like a superficial band-aid over, which was necessary, like, to calm down those, like, surface waters, so it was even possible to see deeper into everything. Yeah. So I don't put any of those things down. They were all, like, absolutely necessary stepping stones and stages of these different types of techniques, and to explore them, and to find what's working. And for me, at the end of that, it was, what the goal really is to be 100% present, equanimous to your conditioning and sensations and the play of the world, and in that clarity, acting and responding to the world in a way that is loving and compassionate and helpful and harmless, and I
Yeah.
think that's where all of those religions and things were trying to go. And it just seems like meditation is a very good tool, whether you're a Muslim or a Christian or a Jew or a Hindu, or find a way to to use that ability to be so present to yourself, and you'll become a better Christian, a better Jew, a better Muslim. It's not going to detract from your faith. It's going to help you to align with the values of your faith much more naturally.
Yeah. Absolutely. I
That
appreciate
was
you
a long
sharing.
rant. Sorry about that.
No, it was very, very cool, and you have so much to share on just your experiences. I mean, in India and all of that. Very, very cool, Chad. I appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah, I hope I hope like by you sharing your experience with meditation and me doing so as well, that it's encouraging to people who are already on the meditative path but are maybe like struggling sometimes or having some difficulty sometimes, or to to realize that that's absolutely a part of it. And it's almost like the butterflies, the struggling to get out of the cocoon so that its muscles are strong enough to actually be able to fly afterwards.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's exactly what I was thinking. Just the thoughts had formed, but the words hadn't quite got there yet. But yeah, meditation's not for everyone. It can be a wonderful tool at your disposal. And yeah, I don't want to scare anyone away from meditation, you know. Um, it's not the boogeyman, you know. It really, and it's not like prayer. Prayer is unique in its own wonderful way. But meditation, I don't believe is the same thing as prayer. I used to believe that, you know. Um, but yeah, it's a very personal thing, meditation. And I don't know. I hope you guys got something out of it today. I think that what we're gonna do on the next episode, which will be El Final of season one, is we're gonna try to include a little meditation. Um, so yeah,
To present just maybe a way to meditate, but
yeah, yeah, exactly. And we would hope that anyone that would wish to, to join us and meditate with us, that'd be great. Um, I think there's a lot of power in the collective, and so yeah, meditation. All in all, it slows things down and allows the vibrations to be a little bit smoother and not so all over the place. Coming in and going out. So yeah, I'm kind of spaced out on the whole meditation topic.
yeah, it's also a very broad topic, but it's also one of those topics that's very the if you're open to it and you're interested in it already, like we are, then the power of it is very palpable. You know, like it really is a powerful tool. Um,
Yeah,
I know, like there in India, for example, they've had SN Goenka, who also does a type of organizes like a type of Vipassana ashrams all over the world, where you can go do those 10-day retreats and things, but in a very specific way that they do it. Um, he took basic Buddhist meditation techniques, developing awareness and equanimity of yourself, and using the breath as a concentration exercise to get your mind sharp enough to be able to do the other meditation. He took those to prisons, to like high security prisons in India, where you had murderers, and the results of that are amazing. And anyone interested in watching that, there's a, I think it's 26-minute documentary film on that exact program that they did um, at an Indian prison, and it's an amazing transformation for a lot of the prisoners, in a very
Wow.
simple way, in a very simple way.
Wow. That's powerful. Yeah, I'm glad you included that. That's cool. I want to look that up myself.
Yeah, it's a good short film.
No doubt.
And just to see like I mean, there's one point where one of the guards, who was like a really difficult, or one of the inmates who was really difficult, gets to the point where he, and because the guards had to meditate with him, like it wasn't just the prisoners, they were all participated in this, right?
Yeah.
So like there's a moment at one point where one of the prisoners, as they're like leaving the Vipassana retreat, is happening inside a certain part of the prison. As he walks by, he just breaks down crying and just hugs the guard, and it's like super powerful. Like, wow, like
Yeah.
he got to such a deep point of seeing the how he was causing his own suffering and suffering of other people, and the mechanism behind it, and how his mind was working at its deeper levels, and experiencing his body at its deepest levels, put him in a place of, I guess what we would call in the West, in a Christian society, in a place of like natural true repentance,
Yeah.
and that's powerful stuff right there. He ended up afterwards working inside the prison to help facilitate more Vipassana meditation retreats inside the prison and stuff. And I think he ends up, I don't think it's in the film, but I think he ended up becoming a certified teacher of that particular um, organization with SN Goenka. And so he leads, I mean, that's his life now. He leads meditation retreats inside the prison, serving his life sentence out. It's absolutely amazing.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Well, it's also Mother's Day coming up. So we definitely wanted to extend all of our gratitude out there to all the mothers out there. Um, we love you guys. We wouldn't be here without you. We wouldn't be able to do anything without you. So thanks for tolerating us. And I mean, I'm just talking about my wife. She does so much for me and in our family, and I just want to say I love you and very grateful for you, sweetheart.
That's very beautiful. That's very beautiful. Yeah, I send the same love and admiration out to my mama and to my wife, finding an absolutely wonderful mother to our two kids, and to all of my brothers and sisters and mothers and fathers, to everyone out there, um, to take time this Sunday um, to be aware and compassionate and kind with the women around you, because they're all daughters and mothers and sisters and aunts and
Yeah,
grandmas.
that's right. Well, thank everyone for tuning in. It's been a it's been a good ride so far, and I know it's coming to an end. I'm a little bit, I think, emotional about that too. Um, so yeah, it's a heavy episode for me, but appreciate you guys being part of it, and thank you, Mr. Monk, for joining me as always and sharing your wonderful experiences with everyone.
Yeah, I love getting a chance to talk to you. Um, this whole podcast has given me um, much more time with you, and that means a lot to me. So
No
yeah,
doubt.
always.
Cool. You guys be kind to one another out there. Be kind to yourselves. Mr. Ego out.